me, please?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, Adaobi. Thank you. All right. So I want to just share a bit about what we do at Techlytics, and after which we'll move on to the deal of today. Thank you very much. All right. I'll be sharing my screen now. Kindly confirm that you can see my screen. Thank you. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen, please. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Okay, so a bit about Techlytics, and then we just move on to today's business. So we're empowering Africa's workforce for a digital future. That's what we're doing at Techlytics, and this is just showing the job gap that we have and why we are here, what we are set to do. That we're hoping that by 20, with a projected 230 million jobs requiring digital skills by 2030, there are gaps for jobs, there are gaps for people to be upskilled and can do better in their fields. And that's why we're here. We're hoping that we can actually meet that gap and ensure that people are where they're supposed to be professionally and career-wise. And this is Techlytics at a glance. We're an edtech institution, and we're driving Africa's growth by equipping its workforce with critical digital skills, right? And we're aligning with the SDG goals for quality education and decent work and economic growth. One beautiful thing about Techlytics is how that we can pick up people with no prior information about digital skills, and in few weeks, they are doing amazingly well. And we're accredited by the CPT Certification Service in the UK. Now, this is our vision. We want to be the leading force in Africa's digital transformation, equipping professionals with essential skills that foster economic growth, resilience, and sustainable development across Nigeria. And our mission is to drive Africa's growth by providing accessible, accredited digital education in data, product management, and no-code development. We aim to reskill 10,000 professionals by 2025. That's this year, and that's why we're doing all of these webinar sessions, just to ensure that people understand, the skill gap and to put them in the right place that they're supposed to be. I already spoke about the problem statement, and these are our solutions. We have cohort-based learning models. We have internship placement that after, our students come and learn, they can actually go on internship with us. Then we also have a practice-driven virtual lab where the students can actually apply what they've learned. We don't just teach theory, we also, teach practical, that they can see, a real life data and actually apply what they've learned. And we also have an AI-enabled LMS. These are notable partnerships. If you have been on the news, we graduated 54 engineers on Tuesday, and what they learned data analytics, and we graduated them on Tuesday. It was a beautiful occasion, and seeing their growth for the past 12 weeks was just so rewarding for us at Techlytics. And the NS is one of our major partners where we help to reskill young engineers, with digital skills needed, in the engineering world. These are the brands that trust us. This is our team. We have Tayo, the founder. Then this is Glory. I'm Brimo Glory. Now Fidelis Glory, program manager. Then this Timothy, and this Triumph, an amazing team. We do the best work. And this is why we are here today, right? We want to talk about understanding and complying with data privacy regulations. When I started the webinar, I talked about how some organizations run into trouble with the way they handle customer data and whatnot. And we are here to understand how best we can actually handle data. It's a data company, and this is a data world. We hear that data is the new oil, right? And that's why we're ensuring that in the way we handle data, we're doing it the right way. We're following the rules and regulations so that we do not, do the wrong things. And we have amazing speakers. We have Adao Binwanko. She's the head of innovation at the Nigeria Data Protection Commission. And we also have Linda Obaji, who is a legal officer there too. So I hope you enjoyed, or you now even know what we do at Techlytics. Thank you very much for staying up till now. So we have gotten to the point where why all of us were here, what we've been waiting for. So we're going to dive into the session immediately. Like I said earlier, please, if you have questions, do well to note them down. After the session, we're going to pick all of the questions and we're going to, answer them accordingly. So, Ada, please confirm you can hear me. Linda, please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. So you have the floor now. We can start with the discussions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Obaki, and like Gloria said, I work with the Legal Department, Enforcement and Regulation Department of the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. I'm going to be taking us through this journey. I'm going to be preaching this data protection gospel today with all of you, right? Like she said earlier, data is the new oil, and we anyhow this oil will get mined. But in the mining, how is it going? Are we sure that those mining this data are putting in all the necessary measures they need to put in place? It doesn't matter if you're an SME, it doesn't matter if you're a business owner, it doesn't matter, provided you're collecting people's data, provided you're processing personal data of people, be it your staff, be it colleagues, be it people that you have contracts with, provided you're collecting people's personal information, you're expected to safeguard it. You're expected to have all the necessary measures put in place to safeguard this data. You're also expected to have what all processing should be processed in line with the principles of processing. There should be a lawful basis for processing it. You should always respect data subject rights in all that you're doing. And then you should always, of course, ensure that you're compliant with the NDPA, that's the Nigerian Data Protection Act of 2023. You should always ensure that you are in compliance with it. Like she mentioned earlier about Fidelity and Zenith Bank, we keep saying we are doing an awareness campaign right now so that people will know. But enforcement is also another means of awareness, because I think it was through the Fidelity that a lot of organizations heard about our existence, and boom, everybody wants to comply, everybody wants to go into it and then understand, because trust me, the penalties will not be so funny, because I mean the law is there, you should know about it and then put all the necessary measures into place. So this is just a little recap of what I'm going to be talking about, because by my time, I know I have 20 minutes for this section. So this is just a little recap of what I'm going to be talking about. We'll learn about the the principles of data protection. We'll all know, okay, what are these principles? How do I imbibe these principles? Am I expected to imbibe these principles in all that I'm doing, and all of that? What are the data subject rights? What are these rights akin to a data subject? How do I save it? Am I expected to answer to the data subject at any given time? When do I stop processing? When do I start processing? How long do I intend to keep the data I'm processing? Okay, what is the lawful basis I'm relying on? Am I relying on consent? Am I relying on legal obligation? Am I relying on performance, on contracts? What are this? So all of this is what we're going to be talking about, right? So I'm going to share my screen now so that we can just dive into it. Hope everybody can hear me, please.
Yes, clearly, Lina. Okay. We can hear you clearly.
All right. So let me share my screen. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, I can see your screen, Linda.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to be talking about all of this. I really don't want to go into the okay, we already know what data protection is all about. We know what privacy is all about. Data protection is definitely just all those measures that are supposed to put in place to avoid unauthorized access. why privacy talks about the measures itself. Sorry, why privacy talks about the decision that is being done on the processing of this data, right? But before the emergence of the Act, Section 37, which makes provision for the right to privacy, was just the only feet upon which data protection or data protection and privacy could stand on. So by that section, it only provided privacy of citizens, that their phone conversation, their home correspondent, telephone conversation, telegram communication is hereby guaranteed and protected. But there is no subsection to talk about how this is guaranteed. What happens if this is breached? How who does the data subjects run to when all of this happen? There was no section to all of, there's no subsection to all of that. So that was what brought about again and the call for us to have a data protection regulation. And from the data protection regulation, we moved to having a data protection law. So we had the data protection regulation of 2019. So that was what was used to sort out issues of data protection then. But a regulation, of course, we know a regulation is not a law, right? So that was what led to the beginning and the conversation around Data Protection Act, and eventually it came into force June 12th, 2023, right? So in the data protection ecosystem, there's data processing, there's personal data, there is personal identifiable data. And then when we talk about data here, we're not talking about we're not talking about statistics data. We're actually more particular or more interested in the personal identifiable information. Any personal identifiable information that can be used to trace a person. That is what we're talking about. We're not talking of corporate data here, although there are still some elements of personal data in corporate data, right? But the ones we are particular about, we're talking about personal identifiable information, like your name, your date of birth, your address, name, any instrument or any information that can be used to identify a human being. That is what we are majorly interested about. So there are key concepts in data protection. There is a data processing, which is any activity done or performed on a personal data, that is personal identifiable data. There's personal data, that is information relating to a natural person. There's an identifiable natural person called a data subject, right? So that identifiable natural person is a data subject in the data protection ecosystem. There's a data controller, who is someone that is interested or someone that collects this data on behalf of the data subject. It can be an organization, it can be an individual, it can be a private and public entity, or an agency, anybody that collects people's personal. I know a lot of persons, or if persons have registered for this webinar. So now Techlix is the one collecting your data and deciding how this data is going to be used and for what purpose this data is going to be used. So the data collected is basically just for this webinar. And then after this webinar, it shouldn't be used for any other purpose aside the purpose that it is meant for. So there is another person called a data, or another entity or another concept called a data processor. So a data processor is basically someone that processes on behalf of a data controller. The data controller collects a data from the data subject. He determines the purpose of collection. He determines how this data is going to be used. He determines how it is going to be processed, right? While a data processor is someone that processes on behalf of a controller. But the good thing about this is whether you're collecting and you're processing on behalf of someone, you should put all the measures into place as well. The same measures that a data controller will put in place, a data processor should also put in those same measures in place in order to safeguard data, right? So there are four key players in this data protection ecosystem. One, there is a data controller. The other one, there is a data processor, and then there is a data subject. Okay, let me put it down. A data controller, a data processor, a data subject, then a data regulator. Or if you want to go around, of course, The controller first, he collects from the data subjects, and then from the data subject, he gives the instruction to the data processor, and then the processor then process on behalf of the controller, and then the regulator is the person that oversees everything, right? Ensuring that all these collections are done in good faith, right? You might not be present to see when it is collected, but provided there's no breach, and ensuring that all the data controllers putting all the measures in place to ensure that the data within their custody are safe. So, like I said earlier, when we're talking about personal data, we talk about personal identifiable information, PII. That is what we're talking about. And it has been classified into two. There is personal data, and then there is sensitive personal data. When we talk about personal data, we talk about your full name, date of birth, gender, license, driver's license number, passports, NIN, address, etc. Of course, your phone number and email address is part of your personal identifiable information. But when we talk about sensitive information, we talk about your health record, we talk about genetic information, we talk about sexual orientation, we talk about religious, ethnic, political, trade union, criminal history, and all of that. The reason why this is classified into this part, because one, the harm that when there's a breach on personal information, right, the harm is not always as grievous as the harm done when there is a breach of sensitive information, right? So that is why there is a classification on how this data, that is why there's a classification, because one will cause grievous harm, even leading to death, while the other one, yes, there will be harm, but it won't be as grievous as the other one. So that is why we have this classification. Okay. So the next one I'm going to be talking about is, okay, yes, and there's a clause. If you are processing personal data, of course, always ensure that you put in all the technical measures that you need to put in place, like unauthorized access. You make sure you encrypt this data. You make sure that there's encryption, there's pseudonymization, there's anonymization of data. There's always data masking. You ensure that you mask this data before you send it to whoever you're sending it, or before it goes on transit, right? Ensure that the next person or the persons you're sending it does not have access to it until it gets to the person that is supposed to have access to it. That is why it is important that you must put strict measures on sensitive information, because if anything happens, if there's a leak or there's a damage, we cannot guarantee what would happen or the outcome, how grievous the outcome would be. So, of course, but when you're processing a sensitive data, always ensure that the consent of the data subject is gotten. And then, of course, if it's also for the purpose of employment, you can process the sensitive data and contracts, vital interest, for profits, legitimate interest, whatever, you can process, but provided you're putting in all the measures that you're supposed to put in place to ensure that this data does not get into wrong hands, or these data are properly secured and safeguarded, right? So these, like I said earlier, these are the stakeholders in the data protection ecosystem. There's a controller, I've mentioned that, all of that earlier. And then these are all the formal players that play a very relevant key role when it comes to data protection ecosystem. Like you hear us talk about data controller, data processor, data subject, data regulator. So a regulator is the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, of course. A controller is anybody that collects personal information in a particular capacity or for a particular purpose, right? The person is a data controller. Like I use Techlitis as an example, and also anybody that processes on behalf of a data controller. Of course, Techlitis will also have other persons that they are working with, or even as an SME, even as a business owner, you also have people that, okay, you might need in the course of your business, in the course of you running your business. There are other persons that you engage in order to help you carry out your duties and ensure that you carry out your duties to safety, right? So, but these are the key stakeholders in data protection ecosystem. Now I'm going to be talking about the existence of the act. Like I said earlier, we were into regulation before the act came into force. Then from the act, So we were into regulation before. We were in regulation before the act came into force. The Nigerian Data Protection Act is the only is the current legal framework. Let me not say only. It's the current legal framework for the protection of personal information. Of course, it's established the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, and then it made provision for. It's divided into 12 parts and 66 sections. Like I said earlier, the act did not repeal the NDPR because there were still some sections when it comes to like subsections that has to do with compliance audit, um, regulations, filing of compliance annual audit. So there are still some sections that we still take rise from and that we're still standing with, right? So also this when you scan this QR code, you'll get a copy of the act, but we'll skip that because of time. And then when this is shared, or you can always get the QR code, you can always get the act from our websites. You can always get the act from our website. Yeah. So these are the objective of the act. Of course, it's the framework for processing of personal data. Talks about data subjects rights, talks about data security, talks about cross-border data transfer, talks about the requirement of a data controller and a data processor, talks about compliance infringements and all of that. So, but the sweet thing about the act is it did not the sweet thing about the act is it makes sure that the application cuts across every organization. Make sure that the application cuts across everybody, whether you're a Nigerian or not. If you're not in, if you're a Nigerian, the act applies to you. If you're processing data of Nigerians, the act applies to you. If you are processing data, even if you're not a Nigerian organization, but you're processing data of Nigerians, the act applies to you. Whether you're a resident in Nigeria or not, the act applies to you. Whether you're a Nigerian organization or not, the act applies to you. Then also, if you are not a Nigerian organization, right, but you're processing data of Nigerians, and you're processing data of Nigerians, right, the act still applies to you. Sorry, like I said earlier, apologies, I'm actually on transit. That's why you could hear the whole up and down. So the application scope, this is it. If you're not a Nigerian, if you're not in Nigeria, the act applies to you, right? So there's an exemption. If you're processing data for household purposes, the act does not apply to you, but you must always ensure that you're processing in line with all the relevant sections. You're processing in line with the principles, you're processing in line with the lawful, there's a lawful basis for processing. You have deployed a data protection officer in your organization that will take care of issues regarding to data protection. And then also there's a breach reporting system where data subjects can report breaches, right? So this is in whatever you're doing, anyhow you're processing this personal information, right? You must always abide by the principles of processing, and it is in six. You must abide by these 6 principles of data protection and privacy, right? First of all, your processing has to be fair, has to be lawful, it has to be fair, and it has to be transparent. Also, you must process personal information. There must be a purpose for processing. There must be a purpose for collection. There must be a purpose why you want to process or you want to collect the personal data of data subjects, right? Then there's data minimization. You should only collect what is relevant to you. Do not collect what you don't need. Only collect what is relevant to you. If, for instance, for the purposes of registration or for the purposes of carrying on one activity or one business or the other, you only, if it's just the name, the phone number, and then, okay, let's say if it's a transactional business, you need an account details, just strictly collect that and don't go further into collecting what. Hello, am I being heard, please? Hello.
Yes,
Hi,
well,
Linda. Yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you, Linda. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I was thinking I wasn't being heard. Okay. Okay. So down to the principles, like I said earlier, collect what is necessary. Always ensure that there's integrity and confidentiality in all that you're doing. That means there must be data security, right? And then always have there should be a purpose limitation. Sorry, a storage limitation. Whenever you're collecting data, there must be a time frame. There should be a time frame for when it is needed. And after then, you can delete it or anonymize it, right? And then always ensure that the data within your custody is accurate and safe and up to date. It is updated, it is accurate, right? So the next I'm going to be talking about, okay, this is just all of what I've just said. There must be a legal ground required. There must be a legal ground for the collection. There must be a legal ground required and then linked to the purpose of processing. There must be transparency, of course. Transparency is the foundation, right, of a data subject. Don't surprise the data subject. And then I'm going to be talking about purpose limitation. The purpose must be specific, explicit, and legitimate. Not, I want to collect data for training, and then I go back to use it for marketing purpose. That is not allowed. Always tell the data subject what you are collecting it for and stick to whatever you are collecting it for, stick with it and stick to it. Okay. Then the next is, like I said earlier, data minimization. Do not collect more than what you need at the time of collection. Let it be relevant, let it be necessary, avoid duplication, and always ensure that there is technical measures in it. Accuracy, data needs to be correct and up to date. Always make sure that you keep updating the data and kept up to date, sorry. Always ensure that you keep the data you have is corrected, and then kept up to date. A data subject can request that, okay, they want to upgrade or update their data in their database to be up to date, and then always ensure that that is done. When you're done with the correction, you can delete the old one and then leave the record of the corrected or of the relevant one with you. So the next I'm going to be talking about is data storage, which I said earlier. Personal data should not be kept for longer period. It should only be kept for when it is needed. And when you're done with it, like I said earlier, you delete it or you render it anonymous. Always have a data retention policy. Curate different retention period for different purposes. So the retention policy for this training might be, I don't know how long you want to keep it, but you can keep it, let's say, for instance, for 2 years. And then after that, you delete it or you render it anonymous so that persons cannot use it for a different purpose, right? And then always justify your retention period. And then always consider anonymization or pseudonymization of data. So I'm talking about the next I'm going to be, like I said earlier, data security. Data security. Integrity and confidentiality is just you keeping this data away from risk, taking it away from unauthorized access. Ensure that there is security of it. This data must be secured. It must be secured at all costs and at all means, right? So unauthorized access, to avoid unauthorized access, to avoid unauthorized access, and always ensure that it is safe against accidental loss. It is safe against destruction and damage. And always ensure that you have a breach reporting system where people can reach out to you, or breach reporting policy where data subjects can reach out to you for any issue regarding data protection or any issue regarding data breaches. So they can reach out at every given time. Always review your software vulnerabilities to ensure safety of what is within your custody, right? So the next I'm going to be talking about is accountability. Every data controller or processor owes a data subject duty of care. You owe your data subject duty of care. Anybody that you're processing his or her data, or you're collecting his or her data, you owe that person duty of care.
And that in order to be compliant with the NDPA, in order to be compliant with the NDP Act, you must develop all data protection policies, like your retention policy, your privacy policy. You must have your record of your processing activities. You must employ a data protection officer who is in charge, or who knows the rudiment, or who understands how data protection works and how it works in the ecosystem. And always ensure that you deploy a data protection compliance, or you engage a data protection compliance organization. So these organizations will help you file your audits. These organizations will help you conduct data protection impact, data privacy impact assessment when it is necessary. These organizations will also help you to develop your record of processing activities, that will help you develop all your policies and make sure your cookie policies, and make sure your policies are in line or are in tandem with the Nigerian Data Protection Act of 2023. And in all that you're doing, always ensure that you adhere to the principles of data protection. So we have 6 lawful bases where in processing of personal data, we have 6 lawful bases. There is consent, there is contract, there is a legal obligation, there is vital interest, public interest, and then legitimate interest. So you can process data in any of these 5, excluding legitimate interest, because legitimate interest needs the consent of the data subject to work together. But you can process data for the performance of contract, yes. You can process data when it has to do with legal obligation, yes. Both of you have a legal obligation that you need to process, or you need to adhere to. So when it comes to legal obligation, you can process data. When it comes to the issue of vital interest, you can process data. Most times I use life and death situation to analyze vital interest, because vital interest has to do with when the data subject is so vulnerable that he cannot give consent at that time. So you can process the data on the basis of vital interest, after which you will get the consent of either the guardian or the data subject itself. Public interest, when it has to do with issues that has public interest in it. Like I use COVID-19 most times in my trainings, because COVID-19, when the issue of COVID-19 happened, where nobody's consent was sought for us to stay at home, right? So in order to avoid the spread of the disease and all of that. So vital interest. So the issue with vital interest is there must be consent. There must be an interest where both parties will want to, or let's say I use Jumia, for example. Like, yes, there's Temu now. So a lot of persons use Temu to purchase goods. You go to Temu, you get to their website, you see something you like, you would request for it. And when you request for it, it will ask you to send, for it to be delivered and shipped down to you, your email address, your shipping address, and all of that, and phone number will probably be asked just for the purposes of what you have requested, so that it can be delivered to you. So that is why legal obligation does not, legitimate interest does not stand alone, because it has to go, the data subject will have to consent before it can be used, right? So there are about 8-9 data subjects rights, right? A data subject, by the NDP Act, the data subjects must, in all that you're doing, ensure that you're safeguarding the right of the data subjects, ensure that the freedom and interest of that data subject is always at the forefront. And like I said earlier, data subject is you and I. It's not necessarily, it's not just the organization itself. Any individual, any person that has blood flowing in his or her vein is a human being. That is, a human being has a means of identification. So data subject rights for anybody processing your data should inform you of what, how, and when they want to process your data. A data subject has right to assess the processing of his data. Yes, a data subject has right to rectify any error that has to do with the processing of their personal information. When, how, what you're doing, is it what, why, and when right now. So there's how, when, and then there's what, for what purpose, why are you doing this? Okay, I need to rectify this because this is unclear, and this is, so you need to rectify this, and then like that, a data subject has that right. Also, a data subject has the right to be forgotten, or it is either forgotten or right to erasure. So you can forget, you can apply for you to be forgotten by an organization, you can apply for them to delete your data, you can apply for an organization to forget or not to trace you anymore, right? And then there is right to restrict processing. A data subject at any point, provided he has given consent, but at any point he can still withdraw his or her consent and restrict any processing. Data subject has the right to object to the processing of data of his personal data, yes. And also he has the right to object to absolute automated decision processing. Any processing that does not involve human intervention, a data subject has right to restrict that processing. Also, a data subject, part of your rights is to lodge a complaint with the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. You can always lodge a complaint with the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. You also have the right to portability. You have the right to move your data from one organization to the other. You can move your, say, okay, now, like, I don't want to be in the, okay, like I'm working from here and like, okay, let's say, for instance, I'm using myself as an example. Let's say I leave the Nigerian Data Protection Commission tomorrow to another agency, and I just write the commission, please, I want my data moved from, all the personal information you have about me moved from this agency that I'm working with to the new place I am working with. Yes, a data subject has that right. You and I has that right. So always ensuring that in order for a data controller or processor to ensure that they are safeguarding the data subject right, you should always abide by the objective of the act, which is number one, safeguard the fundamental right of every human citizen, a fundamental right of every data subject. First of all, you must safeguard it, and then it is the responsibility of the data controller to ensure that he is complying with the data subject right. You see that right to access, very important. Right to request for anything, very, very important. A data subject has that right. And if you deny a data subject that right, the data subject can actually report you to us. That means there are some unclear things that data controller is into and he does not want the data subject to know, right? So, of course, the NDPA has the right to enforce compliance. So if you're processing a sensitive data, or you're processing data of data subject or sensitive data of a child, always ensure you get the consent of that child or the data or the guardian. Ensure that you have age verification mechanism. Ensure that you are safeguarding the sensitive data of that child, like the health history, the education history, biometrics, whatsoever. You must put you must put strict measures into place in order to safeguard that sensitive data of that child. Cross-border data transfer, if you intend to transfer data outside Nigeria, ensure that the country that you're taking this data should have at least some sort of adequacy protection for that data. For instance, they have a data protection law where the data subject can enforce his or her rights there. They should always have a functional data protection, independent, competent, functional data protection authority. And then there should be a rule-binding corporate rules guiding that organization that you can transfer data from one country to the other. And then always their standard contractual clauses should be on point. The clause for data protection should be there as well. If you're a member of international treaty, yes, you can transfer data to that country as well. But if in the vein that they're in all that was said earlier, that I just mentioned, is not there, but it is for the interest of the data subject, you can transfer data. That data subject has said, where I'm going to does not have all of this, but it is for my sole benefit and for my sole interest. Please transfer my data to that place. Please, a data controller or data processor, write it down and transfer the data to that place. So whatever happens, the data subject bears the consequences. It's no longer on the data controller or on the data processor, right? And then it, like I said earlier, is for the sole benefit of the data subject. It is for the performance of contract of the data subject. It is for the vital interest of the data subject, public interest of the data subject, legal claims. You can transfer data to that country regardless. So for a data controller or data processor to comply with the Nigerian Data Protection Act, you're expected to designate a data protection officer. I've said that earlier. You're expected to file an audit return. So this audit returns with this audit returns is always done by a data protection compliance organization. It's just to help data controllers and processors to know their journey so far in their journey of compliance with the NDPA, for them to know what they are doing wrong, right, and what they are doing wrong, where they need to step up and where they need to, okay, let me not say step down, but because there's no step down, so step up and all of that. Always ensure that you perform a DPI. A DPC will tell you when it is necessary. Even your DPO will tell you when it is necessary for you to file for you to do an impact assessment, and then always ensure that you have third-party agreements. And the third-party agreements, the data subjects right must be there. The technical measures put in place by the data controller processor should also be put in place by the data processor as well. So then, like I said earlier, as a right of a data subject, you have the right to report any breach to the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. And then if a data subject reports or lodges a complaint with us, like Gloria said earlier, we now had to issue out some penalties the same way we did to Fidelity, to you. But if you don't want all of that, please ensure that you comply with the Nigerian Data Protection Act and put all the necessary measures you need to put in place. So the Nigerian Data Protection Commission can enforce NDPA in these following ways. Of course, if there's a complaint, we do investigation. After the investigation, we issue out compliance order to the organization that we found wanting. And then after that, we issue out enforcement order. And if no response, like Fidelity did, we now issue out your penalties, which is 10 million or 2% of your annual profit, or if it's an organization that is not of major importance. The 10 million is if you are of major importance, and the 2 million is if you are not of major importance, but your 2% annual profit will always be collected. If you're not satisfied with any decision of the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, you can go to Federal High Court for a judicial review. And also, we imbibe the principles of civil remedy. We can ask the controller or the processor to compensate the data subject if we find that the data subject was fully injured, right? We can issue out a notice and ask the data subject, the controller, to compensate the data subject on it. And if you are not satisfied, go for a judicial review. So we do the forfeiture parts. If we issue out penalties and you don't pay us, we can seize your property. It's part of what we do. Yes, joint and vicarious liability. Yes, you can't say because you're a processor, you won't put in measures and then the leak will come from you. It will come after you, whether you're a processor or your controller. Everybody will marry everybody together. There's no escape route. So, like I said earlier, this is it. If you're of major importance, we'll collect 10 million from you. If you're not of major importance, we collect 2 million, but your 2% annual gross revenue will be collected. So in order to be compliant with the Act, you have to develop, like I said earlier, always ensure that all your policies are in place. Have your privacy policy, the content of your privacy policy is just basically telling the client, or you telling the data subject, that I'm collecting your data for this, I'm collecting your data for that. In case if you don't reach out, if there's any issue, you can contact our DPO. The DPO's information is going to be on the privacy policy. You can contact our DPO for this, for that, for this, for that. Yes, that is it. That is majorly the content of, I think it's section 3. I can't remember the exact section number. Is that section 26 or thereabout, or 28 that has the template for a DPIA in the Act? Yes. Also, ensure that whatever you're doing, you're imbibing the principles of data protection and privacy, the purpose limitation, the lawfulness, fairness, and transparency, the storage limitation, the integrity and confidentiality, the data minimization, the accuracy, accountability, and all of that. Always designate a senior officer as a data protection officer. So here, the thing about this is, by the rules or by the laws guiding data protection, guiding the data protection ecosystem, a DPO can be anybody, right? But a DPO is always expected to work hand in hand with the top management. So that is why most times DPOs
are asked to be senior officers if we know that the organization will not take a younger officer and will not be listening to a younger officer. Please ensure that you designate a senior officer to be a DPO. A DPO is just someone that has requisite knowledge of data protection. He has gotten his certification. He understands the rudiment of data protection, understands how data protection works, and all of that. And if you have not registered with the Nigerian Data Protection Commission as a data controller or processor of major importer, please do that, because very soon there will be a compliance drive, and don't say I did not tell you. Thank you very much. And then always ensure that you file your annual audit. Like I said earlier, the annual audit, it's just you gauging yourself on your journey, your compliance journey with the NDPA so far. And then also, if you're having third-party vendors, if you're having a third-party processor, ensure that your third party complies with the Nigerian Data Protection Act. Your third party puts in all the necessary measures they need to put in place. Your third party is compliant with the Nigerian Data Protection Act. So if for the purposes of registration, you can check our website I think the portal for registration is services.ndpc.gov.ng, and then you can check our website for more, or you can follow us on all our social media platforms if you have issues regarding, so that if you can make your complaints on any of the platform. So I think with this, I'm going to be drawing the line and then leave the floor for Madam Adobe and for questions and answer. Thank you. Hope you can hear me.
Yes. Thank you so much, Nina. I learned a lot. So I think we're going to be having that after Adaobi's session, right? So Adaobi, please confirm you can hear me. And for those of you that have questions, let's do this way. Let's take questions regarding what Linda spoke about, and then we can now move on to Adaobi, so that everything is not muddled up. So if you have any questions regarding what Linda just spoke about, please, you can put them on the chat box while Adaobi gets ready for a session. But I like a lot, and there's one thing I really want to speak about. I like that you differentiated between data protection and data privacy. You said that you spoke about data protection focusing primarily on the measures and mechanisms implemented to safeguard data, while privacy itself means empowering individuals. That's data subject, that's you and I, and every human being that has blood flowing through their veins, like you said, decisions about who can process their data and for what purpose. I'm learning how that data subjects have a lot of voice, right? If you don't know now, you know now that you have a voice to say, oh, I want this to be done with my data, and I don't want this to be done with my data. And the right authorities to report to if your data is being mishandled or used for another purpose for which it was intended for. So that really stood out for me, really. And I love the fact that you broke down the repercussions of mishandling data. Right now in my head, I'm like, I need to take data seriously. And then when you made the example of Techritics, the data that we use presently and for the webinar, how that you cannot use it for another thing that has been stated for. So thank you so much. I want to go and tighten my belt right now.
No, we don't mind. We just don't do it so that we can come after you. We like
no. Thank you so much. Okay. There's no question yet. All right, Linda already answered one question in the chat box, so there's a question here. So I think we can have Adobe now, because I'm really enjoying this session, right? So Adobe, please confirm you can hear me, and let's have it, please.
All right, thank you very much. I'm not logging out, but let me get myself sorted out. Yes, thank you.
All right, not a problem. Thank you very much. Yeah,
you're welcome.
Adobe, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adobe. The head innovation in NDPC. So what we'll just be discussing today is on the technical and organizational measures that you're supposed to implement in your organization, your company, even you as an individual or a a data subject. Hold on, please. So can you see my screen?
Yes,
Hello?
it's coming up. It's coming up.
All right. So I like the fact that you were able to differentiate between data privacy and data protection. Like Linda has already given an overview of what you are supposed to do in order to handle the personal data in your care. So privacy, as she explained, is how the data is being handled, what's supposed to be in place in handling the data. Like she talked about the principles, she talked about the lawful basis, she also talked about data subject rights. So now we're going to talk about data protection. And data protection simply means what you need to implement to safeguard the personal data in your care. And the Nigerian Data Protection Act in Section 39 has really said that data controllers and processors are to implement the appropriate safeguards or technical and organizational safeguards or measures to protect the personal data in their care, as shown in the slide below. So go into data security, which is simply means the data protection. So we're talking about what you need to do to ensure that no unauthorized access, no theft, no data loss, no ensuring integrity of the personal data that is in your care throughout the data's life cycle. And data life cycle starts from the collection to the processing, storage, and also deleting or archiving of the personal data. So throughout the data life cycle, what you're supposed to do to ensure that no unauthorized assets, no corruption, no theft, only the appropriate personnel are able to access that information. Only the appropriate personnel are to access that information at the right time, not just at any time. There's a particular time to access it, the particular time you should make use of it, and all that. So we keep hearing data breach, data breach. So breach basically is when unauthorized personnel has gained access to your system. They have access to your login details, they have access to your records, they have access to your system, basically. And when they have access to such, when they have access, they're able to maybe alter the information that is there, remove, copy, or even delete the information that is there. And when those informations are changed or when they are accessed by unauthorized people, is breach. And if, for instance, you're in the medical institution or medical, like in the hospital, and maybe something occurs and your patient's data has been lost or accessed and maybe damaged or lost or deleted, it can cause a problem to that hospital. So to prevent this breach from happening, it is advisable for you to put in safeguards to ensure that those personal information that is in your care is being protected. And Section 40 of the Nigerian Data Protection Act set out strict requirements for data controllers to follow. And within 72 hours, you're supposed to report to the commission if a breach has occurred, the magnitude of the breach, and what you have done to ensure that that is not going to happen again. What have you put in place to minimize the effect and all that. So you're expected to report that to the commission within 72 hours. If you exceed 72 hours, that's a big problem for you. And I know Linda talked about it. So now we talk about breaches, and there are various types of breaches. There is the passive and there's the active. And the passive data breach is about how like a hacker or an unauthorized personnel is just quietly observing, just gathering intelligence, just trying to see how this system works, gaining intelligence, gaining information without doing anything at all, without even disrupting, like saying, without altering any data or disrupting system flow. It's just gaining intelligence, gaining information, and maybe those information that that person is trying to gain using the passive data breach is what he might use to do the active data breach. And to prevent passive data breach, you're supposed to have encryption, monitoring your network, and all those, which I'll discuss as we go along. And active data breach, as it's saying here, is cause immediate damage, basically, by manipulating, by stealing, by disrupting services. It's trying to cause. That's what this active data breach is all about. And examples here are the denial of service, social engineering attacks. That means looking at what is going on and learning, and then having access to the system, the viruses and malwares that we know about. So here is just talking about information and cybersecurity. Information security basically is the policies and the procedures, the processes, practices, and technologies that need to be in place to protect the data. So it's just talking about all forms of data, whether it's digital, physical, whether it's digital and physical, how you protect the information that is in your care. And cybersecurity, as we all know, it basically refers to the digital protecting the digital information or data in your care, like your network, your systems, your server, all from cyber threats or cyber attacks. So it's saying, what it's just trying to say is things that you need to put in place to protect the data in your care from cyber threats, cyber attacks, such as firewalls, we know of, implementing strong network protocols, inputting strong tools like intrusion detection systems and the likes to prevent access to the digital or the data that you have in your care or your network or your systems, your digital systems. So we all know what CIA is, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So the CIA tired is basically to create a secure framework to protect data from cyber threats, risk, and even human factors. We all know that if you can put in place all the appropriate processes, having the mechanism, security tools in place, but if you have like a human factor, a human risk, it can spoil everything. So this CIA is just to ensure that every component are in place to protect the information that is in your care, that is in your system. Confidentiality just means that only authorized personnel has access to that information. No other person has, only authorized personnel have access. Then integrity is talking about ensuring that the information is complete, is accurate, the information has not been altered, it has not been changed through the storage, when at transit, while in transit, even while at rest, that information is still as it is. Then availability is just talking about the system being, like I said, being available when you need it to be available. For instance, you want to log into your official email address, you want to be able to log into your email address at whatever time you want it to be available. So that is what availability is. Time you want to access it, without maybe having any disruptions that will prevent you from accessing that information. So these are just various types of cyber attacks that we have. We have the phishing, which most of us have fallen victims to it. For instance, you have a website called www.mynameadobe.com. Then because you're used to the adobe.com, so a hacker or a vice person can just change the name to maybe Adobe, instead of maybe the O that they might put a 0, and zeros and O kind of are similar. You might not know, and when you get into that website, they ask for your personal information, then they have access to your system. So phishing just basically means displaying something that is fake as if it is real. They have man-in-the-middle attack. That means there's someone there is dropping on your conversation, trying to gain information as the network traffic is going, trying to gain information, listening, traffic is being transmitted and all that. Then you have password attacks. That means I know most of us, you get emails like, oh, someone is trying to gain access into your social media account. That means someone has something and they're using that to break into your system, using either dictionary attacks or brute force guessing to gain access to that system. Another one again we know of is ransomware, where they'll hold your information, maybe to hold your information at for a cost. It will gain access to your system. Then before you can have access to it, they will not ask you, okay, you need to pay so and so amount before you can gain access to that. So there are various types of cyber attacks, and we need to be on guard, because you never know who is watching, who is looking at you, who is trying to gain intelligence, trying to gain information about you, about your organization, about even as simple as your social media platforms and the likes. So what are these measures that we need to implement? One of them is pseudonymization, and pseudonymization simply means converting, or it's not converting, sorry, removing personal identifiable information. For instance, maybe like I like to use the health and sector. There's a patient called Adobe, and because you don't want anybody to know who this Adobe is, you might just remove the name Adobe and replace with an artificial identifier, which can be maybe a number. So patient Adobe will now be replaced by patient 001. Nobody will know who patient 001 is. They will just know that this is just patient 001, but they will not link whoever that patient is with the information that they have gotten. Another one again is encryption. Encryption simply means converting the data to maybe converting the data and using decryption keys that we are aware of. We have the public and the private keys to be able to access that information. So if you don't have those keys, you will not be able to access it because it has been encrypted. Then we have the intrusion detection systems, which I mentioned before. One of the things that we need to put in place in the as in the cybersecurity part that I talked about. And intrusion detection system simply means security tools to monitor the traffic for suspicious activities or cyber threats. Having tools to see if anything is happening, suspicious movement, traffic, intrusion. That's what intrusion detection system means. Then we have the VAPT, which is vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. And this is just to identify the weaknesses that are in your system. So it's just to identify if there's any weaknesses in your system through testing, so that you'll be able to correct that or put things or measures in place to ensure that nobody can have access or be able to breach that system. Then we have training and awareness. We can never overemphasize the importance of training and awareness. That means educating your staff, educating yourselves on the risk, best practices to prevent access, to prevent loss, even to prevent human errors. Like I said, you can put the best security tools, you can put in the best processes, but it can still fail if the humans, your workers, are not being educated about what is going on. So it's very important for organizations, individuals as well, to know how to secure themselves. Like one of the things that we try to do is most of us, like, let's be honest, most of us, we wear our office ID cards, right? Because it's mandatory in your organizations. But when we go out, we forget to remove it. And you don't know if someone is watching you, has already identified or has been monitoring. Oh, this person, I know where she works, or taking picture of your identification, and they'll use it for whatsoever. Most of us too, we go to maybe cyber centers to print, to photocopy, and we leave our maybe to photocopy our NIN, our passport. We leave maybe the photocopy is not clear. We, instead of shredding it, we just leave it as it is. You don't know who is watching, who can pick that up to do something. So we need to educate ourselves on the importance of safeguarding ourselves while we are utilizing all these systems. And we have the data privacy impact assessment, which Linda talked about, and is just a way of evaluating all your processing activities that will affect privacy. For instance, you want to develop a solution, or you have a solution that is going to be used for processing information. That means data subject information is going to be used there. You need to conduct a DPIA to see if to ensure that everything is in place, the security is in place, whatever it is that you're going to use are in place to ensure that the privacy of that data subject or that individual that is going to use your system is protected. And we all know that most solutions run or are driven by the personal data through the signing up, the logging in, and all that. So if you're to use or to produce a solution or a system or something that will affect privacy of data subjects, is advisable, and even the law has mandated it, that you should conduct a data privacy impact assessment. So now we're going to talk about the technical approach to cybersecurity. So the first part is the proactive security practices. Most times, which is very important. So these proactive activities simply means the actions to prevent security incidents and minimize breaches. So these are things you need to put in place to prevent breaches, to prevent unauthorized access, to prevent loss, to prevent theft of the data in your care. And one of the things that proactive security practices, apart from what is even listed here, is we all know using of strong passwords. Some of us use our children, our husband, our date of birth. No, they're supposed to use strong passwords, and strong passwords includes using unique characters such as alphabets, numbers, using symbols, mixing them all together to create passwords, and also changing of passwords. Some of us who have used our password for years, we need to change those passwords. So those are the things that we do. Another thing again is software updates. Some of us, you'll see your system popping up. Even our phones, you need to update your phones, you need to update your softwares and all that. We just ignore it. And next thing you'll be wondering, how did this person gain access? Those updates that have been produced are ways to ensure that your system is being protected regularly. It produces, those updates contains patches that are used to ensure that the softwares that you have installed are not going to be accessed by hackers or unauthorized personnel. Another thing again is encryption, which I explained, converting your information and using the keys, and it's only those that have access to the keys that can decrypt that information. Then backing up. Most of us have information and we don't back up. What if something happens? How will you be able to gain your what if someone damaged your information? How will you be able to access that? So it's very important for us to be able to back up our systems. And training is even listed there. Training and awareness, like I said, that cannot be overemphasized. You need not just training once, you need a continuous training of yourself and also your colleagues, staff, your junior colleagues, everyone, even down to your cleaners, your gatemen. Everyone needs to be aware about what is going on, how to prevent attacks, how to keep themselves safe while they are online. Then we have the reactive security practices. So now reactive approach simply means when a breach has occurred, something has occurred, an attack has occurred. So you now have to go and learn from what has happened. So reactive practices simply means response to incidents after they have occurred. And most of those things can include potential data loss, harm, damages have already been done. So you have looked at, this what happened, okay, what have we learned and what can we do to ensure that this doesn't happen again? And one of the things that you put in place is having recovery plan, fixing those vulnerabilities, putting future defense systems and incident response plan to ensure that none of this will happen again. You have learned your lessons, you have put things in place so that this will not repeat itself again. That's what reactive security practices. So I'll always let people know that you don't need to wait for something to happen to you before you learn the lesson. Put everything in place at first. Put everything in place. Do what you need to do first. You don't need to wait for something to happen before you can now do those things. So put everything in place first. So I always encourage people to go for the proactive security practices first. Then we are going to talk about the technical and organizational measures. So here is just talking about what to do. So in the technical measures simply means implementations. What's you're supposed to put, like I spoke about: encryption, access control mechanisms, data masking, data backups, ID systems, regular software updates, like I've said, data classification, secure coding practices, and the likes. And organizational measures simply means policies, procedures, processes that you need to put in place. And one of them is the DPO, which Linda talked about, which is the data protection officer. That person has to be knowledgeable. So for the person, an individual can read, can write, is smart, then the person can be a data protection officer, the person that understands the importance of safeguarding privacy. Then we have the employee training, like I said, awareness and training, very key to this technical and organizational measures. DPIA, like I explained before, this is where you evaluate yourself if you're trying to create a system or a solution or something that is going to affect privacy. It's very important that you conduct a DPIA. Then incident response plan, then third-party risk management. Most of us don't know that you might put things in place, but it can be the vendors, your agents, that has that might bring in the risk. So, like Linda said, it's very important for you to ensure that whoever it is that you're bringing in, your third-party vendors or agents, must comply with the act, ensure that they have implemented all the technical and organizational measures in place to safeguard the information that you're going to share with them. And they have also signed an agreement with you and put in place things to ensure that any information that you're going to share with them is secured. Another thing again is, it's not mentioned here, is having to put in place privacy policies. And privacy policy just tells your data subjects or those that access your system what you're going to do, how you're going to use their system, you're going to use their personal data, what security measures you have put in place, who are you going to share their information with, and the likes. That's what privacy policy is, and it's also part of the organizational measures. Then we talk about regular audits and assessments. That means, and this is being conducted with the assistance of a DPCO, which Linda talked about, which is the data protection compliance organizations, are the ones that help you to help you in carrying out your audits and assessments, ensuring that all the things that you need to put in place to protect protect the personal data in your care throughout the life cycle is in place. Then privacy by design. That means whatever solutions or process or system that you're trying to build must have privacy first, not as an afterthought, but must have privacy first as you're building and developing your solutions. Then here we're just going to talk about other applicable organizational policies that you must put in place. One of them is the email policies. And email policy is just to regulate and guide the use of emails to ensure that security and compliance with ethical standards. So most of us here have official emails. So how do you ensure that your emails are secure when you're using it? One of them is to not just open any attachment sent from unknown or suspicious sources. Be careful of phishing, which I explained. Always look at the URL. Ensure that it's not just ensure that whoever is sending you email, you know who that email, look at it, be sure that that email is actually a legit email address. Like I said, regularly changing of passwords regularly, avoid using common words. What else again? Implementing access controls, encrypting sensitive information before you send them through your emails and all that. Even when some of us are still using our personal email address, we should email accounts. We should also put things in place, like I've said, when we're using our official email. So we should use strong passwords, look at who is sending you, look at the email address that is sending you an email. Do not just open any attachment that has been sent to you, you're not sure. And also, encrypt any sensitive information that you're going to transmit via your email. So these are the policies that are to ensure security, to ensure secure usage of your email address while you are online. Then we have the internet acceptable policies. This is just a guideline on the use of internet to enable security and safety while you're online. And this is just to reduce risk, such as malware, phishing, and enhancing security and also ensuring compliance. So how do you protect yourself while you're online? Most of us, we just go into our URL, we just accept any URL that has been sent to us. Most of us, we just see free Wi-Fi, it's free, I'll just log in and use the internet that is there. Most of us, we download. You don't know that as you're downloading something with it. Downloading something with it. So how do we secure ourselves while we're using the internet? One, we should ensure to look at one of them is to update our browsers. It's very important. Most of us, when we just install our browsers, we just leave it as it is. We need to update our browsers. Two, we should take note of the HTTPS, which is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. If you don't see that, then you should be wary of that. Clearing our history, cache, cookies, and being safe while we're online, basically. And another thing again is we should avoid cyberbullying, harassment, trolling while we're online. Yes. Then access control policies, like it's saying here, is policy to ensure secure access to organizational resources. So access control policies, just rules in place to restrict access to only authorized individuals or personnel, that they're the only ones that can have access to this sensitive information or data in the system. And how do you ensure this policy? By putting in place strong passwords, role-based access control, putting password policies, like I said, strong passwords, regularly changing your password. Yes, it's a lot of work, but it's something that we need to do to secure ourselves while we have our systems in place and all that. Then mobile computing policies. This is just talking about guidelines on how we use our mobile devices, such as our phones, our tablets, even our laptops. Prevent unauthorized access, breaches, data risk. And one of them is we should be able to have passwords. To be honest, people don't know the importance of having strong password. Imagine if you have a password that is your husband's date of birth and someone gets it, they have access to it. But if you regularly change it, use complex and unique characters, it makes it difficult for someone to even access to access that system or that server or that device that you have. Another thing again is to encrypt. There's some sensitive information that you have that you don't want another person to have access to. So encrypt that information. Encrypt it. You don't need to just leave it bare as it is. If something is bare, then someone can easily access it and utilize that information. So password, encryption, putting in place things, even having antivirus is another measures that people take for granted. Updating their softwares, we take that for granted as well. So these are things that we need to do and put in place in your policy for your mobile computing. Then bring your own device. I know most of us, we use our phones in our organizations. We bring our laptops, our tabs to the office, but you can have policies, devices in their building. As you're coming in, you're dropping it, because you know that if someone can, if your personal device can enter into their organization or their office, it can cause something. So they try to prevent people from bringing in there, but still, things needs to be in place. Even while we're using our personal devices to do our work, we should put things in place to safeguard those information that is in that personal device. Then software policies, talking about rules of how to install softwares, updates, and use to prevent vulnerabilities. Most of us, we try to get bootleg softwares, and going to get bootleg softwares can cause harm to our systems, can jeopardize the privacy of the personal data in your care. So the things you should do, which I've said again, is always update your software, get the correct software. Do not go and just get one that you see around. Get the licensed and authorized softwares, or update your softwares because of the patches that are in there to ensure that there's no security vulnerabilities or cyber threats. Then we have the network security policy. This is just to secure your network, including firewalls, putting things in place, including firewalls, encryptions, monitoring for cyber threats. So what do you do here? Like number one says network segmentation. That means isolating sensitive systems, backing up, having firewall configurations, using strong network protocols like WPA2 or WPA3 and the likes. Just how to ensure that your network is safe from cyber threats, from breaches, or from potential attacks. Then clear decks and clear screen policy. This is very important. Most of us, will be working on our systems, maybe drafting something on our systems or doing something very important on our systems, and maybe our bosses calls us. Instead of maybe closing your desktop or your laptop or even clearing your screen, we leave it open. So this clear decks and clear screen policies is just to encourage staff to keep their workspaces free from sensitive information. Some of us, they'll send us a file, we'll leave it open there and anybody can see it. It's good for us to be locking our screens when we're away to prevent unauthorized viewing or access, because these things that we take for granted is what most of these vices or most of these I would like to hackers or people use to gain access to our systems. All right, so this is just the QR code to our to our act, and you can scan it to gain access to it. So I just want to say, oh, can you hear me?
Yes, that will be very,
All
very.
right. Okay, so let me continue sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Right. So if you can scan this to gain access to the Nigerian Data Protection Act, and as Linda said, you can also find it at our resource in the resource tab in our website, which is ndpc.gov.ng. I want to say thank you. If there's any question that you need to ask, you can go ahead and ask. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Adaobi. That was very insightful and really loaded. Thank you so much. So we have a question, and the question says that we might not know when our data is being breached or has been breached. How do we know when our data has been breached, or whether a data controller or processor has collected our data beyond any of the legal basis for processing data under the NDPA?
Sorry, please, can you repeat that again? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So I said that the person is asking that how does he or she know when their data has been breached, or when a controller or a processor has collected the data beyond any of the legal basis for processing data under the NDPA?
Okay, so what I would just say is, I don't know, Linda, do you want to take this? One of the things that we try to encourage is the data subject access request form, where you have the right to go to your data controller and ask them, I want to see what you're using my information for, my personal information for, and know what is being used for. Another thing, again, I talked about was privacy policy, where the data controller is supposed to state everything that's going to be in place while using your personal information. If the person is going to share this information with another party that you're not aware of, or whatever it is, how the personal data is going to be shared, who is going to use it, how they are going to use it, what security mechanisms they have put in place to protect the data subjects personal data. So, but another thing, again, like I said, is very important is your right. You can go and meet a data controller and ask, okay, I want access to my information. I want to see what you're using my information for. And if it's contrary to what the person or the data controller is using it for, then you have the right, again, to report to the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, report to us and send us a mail, which is in the info@ndpc.gov.ng. So that's how, those are ways that you can use to see if a data controller is using your information other than what it was meant for. And even yourself, if, for instance, they told you that, okay, I'm going to use your personal information I'm going to share a book or a book with you using your personal information, and you found out that the person is using it for something else, then you know that that's a breach. Then you can report to us, like I said, which is your right.
All right. Hi, Madam Adobe, thank you very much. Just to lend a word and just to lend my voice to what she just said, right? You know, there are situations whereby you will we know Jumia, we know Domino's Pizza, right?
Yeah.
So when you buy something, when you buy for the first time from Domino's Pizza, they will, and of course they will ask you to drop your email, or sometimes you drop your phone numbers, right? After that purchase, we all know what goes about again. Am I the only one that knows? They will start sending you their new packages, extra things, or how they've not seen you again, how you need to still come back and buy from them. These are breaches, right? It's not, we don't wait for it to come in a very large magnitude. These are breaches. I took your data because I patronized you, and then you said, okay, for the sake of petrol. Okay, let's say for instance you've made payment and it didn't come, they can reach out to you on that ground, right? But after that purchase, your contract with them ends there. But once it's now moved from that place to marketing mails, and then you send them a mail, you like, okay, recently there's a case, a decision by the Federal High Court, right? What resulted to it? Someone used this Jumia food to order for food. And then there are three parties, right? There's the payment platform, there is the Jumia food itself, and then there's the pizza part. This is just the highlight of the case though. So the guy ordered from Jumia food for a pizza. And then after that, made his payment, got his packages and left. The third party, the top subsidiary, started sending marketing mails to him how there are new products, how there are new ones he needs to try. And then when he had written severally to them that they should stop, they said, okay, fine, they have stopped on that platform. When he ordered via another platform, they continued, right? So when the guy now went to court, and then when he got to court, from the judgment of the court was like, he signed up for a particular purpose. And once that purpose is ended, you are expected not to leave that purpose for another. That's how it's supposed to be. You're expected to just stick to that purpose, and when you're done with that purpose, leave it. Don't go further unless the unless the data subject has given you consent. That is data breach. And at the end of the day, like, they awarded a huge sum, and they are supposed to pay. But we know in Nigeria, apart from when it has to do with they will still go to court for appeals. But for this particular stand, I didn't request for marketing mails, and you start sending me marketing mails. So even if I decide to use other platforms to order, I am ordering just for a particular purpose, and the particular purpose is this. I'm ordering from pizza, and then you have it delivered to me, and that is it. So the fact that he has signed up in another platform and they are in that platform, so automatically gives them the right to send marketing mails to them. So these are breaches, right? Or like the same way, which other platform will I use? And a bank account, a bank that you don't even have any sort of connection with. They will start sending you how they've used your phone number to create account numbers for you, and how you're supposed to put money into that account, right? These are breaches. You can request, how did you get my contact? And if you're not satisfied with it, tell them to stop. And if they don't stop, at least have a trend, have your own complaint. Okay, this is what you've done. So when you bring it to us, we'll gladly take it up from there, gladly. So most times we don't wait for the breaches to become to be on a very high magnitude. These little ones are part of the breaches. Someone you don't know all of a sudden, okay, this way that all of a sudden someone will start sending campaign mails to you that you never for one day had any connection with the person. These are breaches. So you don't wait for it to get so long before you can report. Anyone you're not comfortable with, please report as early as possible so that it can be tracked down and they need to stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. I think the final questions will be around, people are asking around the NDPA certificate training, if the training is up and whatnot.
Sorry, I didn't get
the best position.
I didn't get that, please.
So
what did you say?
People are asking about NDPA certificate training, if it is up.
Okay, so the DPO certification, we started this year in February, and 500 were able to write the certification. So definitely we're going to do another one, and everyone will be aware of it. So for now, we're still in the process of making it public, but we are on it already. So like I said, we did 500, and we'll still do it again, and we'll still make it public for everyone to be able to everyone to be able to how do I put it, register and become a DP. Another thing again we try to do is to ensure to let people know and follow our social media platforms, because that's where all those informations are. You can follow us on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Those informations about the certification program definitely is going to be announced there. So yes, we're working on it, and very, 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 very soon you'll get to know and be able to register and apply to be a DPO.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Adaobi. And we've come to the end of today's webinar. I hope we had a great time. If you have more questions, you can send it to us. And we also have, I know we learned a lot today, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. And at Technetics, we have a course we are running presently. And the course, I'm going to be sharing my screen now. And the course is on data governance, where you can learn more. You can learn more about, all these things we've been talking about, data and whatnot. So this is the course. It's for 2 months, and it is 300,000 naira. July 5th, it's starting on Saturday, July 5th, 2025, and we would love to have you on the course. Do you want to know more about the course? Please send a message. Please send a message to us on our social media platforms, and I've also posted a booking link where you can have like a 15-minute chat with me on regarding the course, so that you can learn more about data governance, how you can, understand your data, protect your data, and whatnot. So I've sent the booking links to the chat box and also the Q&A session. Do well to send a message to us. You can also follow us on all our social media platforms at Technetics Africa. Then you can go to our YouTube page. There are other webinars we've held around data security also. You can watch some of them and, have more understanding on this subject matter, and also join us for our classes. For every webinar we're going to be having, around this subject matter. I want to say a very big thank you to Adaobi and Linda for staying with us till this time. Thank you to everybody on this call that stayed till the end of this call. It was a robust session, and I'm sure that we learned so much. If you want to learn more, then join us on our next course. That's the data governance course that is starting in July. And I have sent a link, for anyone that wants to know more about the course and wants to have a conversation with me. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. I look forward to seeing you all in our next webinars. Thank you so much. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Adaobi. Was it nice?
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.